Identity again. Before people get upset, I'm not picking on him. This actually came as a request from longtime friend of the channel and fellow math nerd Dispatch, who wanted to get my opinion on Identity's Immortal build, 500% weapon damage, bloody. How's he getting 500% weapon damage? Yeah. All I know is it involves Ravenous, which immediately piqued my interest because how I actively got into the math of the Division 2 was purely to dispel Ravenous crap, because literally no one, other than like the top tier speedrunners and people that actively used it, had any idea how Ravenous worked. So I infiltrated them like a super sleuth, got all the information, mathed it all out, and then put it into YouTube videos, which I've done like 5. So yeah, that's like the main thing that I'm interested in here. I won't lie, I've just taken a dose of, I don't even know what they're called, but something. So anyway, yeah, let's have a go.
For a while, many different variations. I made a community post about it, whether or not I should use the Fox's pair of knee pads or the Overlord backpack, because there's a certain way that I want to use this build, and if it turns out right, it's going to be insane. And I think this is the perfect test bed to see what it's going to do. I'm going to put myself in the most vulnerable situation ever, and we'll see the outcome.
Title based it on Legendary, and the video is 12.28 minutes. Tinfoil hat. Well, I say tinfoil hat. That's a nice way of putting it. Build isn't immortal, because I can guarantee you he dies, because there's no way you're doing solo legendary title in 12.28 minutes. I know the guy that has the world record, and it's sweaty as hell. And I think it's like, I want to say around 20 minutes. So, yeah, it's not immortal. He 100% dies. Probably just doesn't show it. But yeah, there's no way.
All right, let's do this. Hopefully the Chunga comes this way. Shot back.
I see a deflector shield, which is neither good nor bad. It's an interesting take. However, every time I've used the deflector shield, after like taking a certain amount of hits from it, ads just go, okay, I'll aim at your head, at which point deflector shield does nothing and you end up taking more damage, or at least in my experience. But definitely running some Foundry here. We've obviously had the icon and the regen that's got going on. He's running Technician because he has the, I've forgotten what it's called, the Artificer Hive, Arty Hive. I think people just call it the Purple Hive, but I'm colorblind, so I'll go with Artificer Hive.
Are you at Chunga? There you go. There you go. Let's see what you got, baby. Let's go. Yeah, I'm gonna do a 1v1 with you one of these days.
Called it. Like, we're immediately now in Manning National Zoo. Don't get me wrong, it does look impressive, but I was told there's Ravenous, so I'm holding all judgment until I see the Ravenous. Chunga, Ravenous, you main the left shoulder. You have to main the left shoulder. Sticking on the right? No. What he's doing here is he's building maximum stacks for each shoulder of Ravenous and then swapping. Against the Chunga, you want to do initial 5 on the left, 1 right, and then 6 on the left, 1 right, 6 on the left, 1 right. The reason for that is because it's double barreled. So as you swap over, you end up in a 1 deficit. So you need to do 6. First is 5, then you need to do 6, 6, 6, 1, 6, 1, 6, 1. The reason for this is Ravenous has an amplifier of 500% to armor plating. The main area where you'll see this will be things like Warhounds and Chungas. Other things will be like enemy ballistic shields. That's armor plating. Enemy helmets, armor plating. Razorback from the Dark Hours raid, armor plating. Yeah. Ravenous is mostly used as a stack stick just because the swapping shoulder mechanic is annoying. It's a tiny bit better now that it's full auto, but it's still annoying. There's no way around it not being annoying. With something like a Chunga, once you have his armor broken, that's when you want to main the right shoulder to get those explosions to wipe out the remainder of his health. But you would need a fair amount of damage to be able to do that in one rotation. Judging by his armor bar, he doesn't have that damage. Yeah, we're skipping all over the place between Manning and Tidal.
I gotta be honest, the Ravenous has seen better days. It used to just dominate everything. Just look at this DZ footage from years ago. And after this rifle update, I just knew the Ravenous would get its glory back. But so many other rifles simply outshine it. Its fire rate.
If you know how to use Ravenous, nothing outshines it. Nothing. It's the highest DPS weapon in the game, but you have to know how to use it. You have to. Ravenous by itself, with how it works, is like literally if you had a naked character, nothing on it, with just Ravenous, is fully capable of outperforming full strikers. Everything. But you have to know how to use it. And in what scenario. Ravenous, as far as I'm aware, actually hasn't seen much of a change. I could be wrong. If anything, it would just be base stats. But in terms of mechanic, talent, etc., and now being made full auto, it hasn't changed. Overall performance of other rifles it's kind of in the same area. It hasn't moved a lot. It's all about the talent and how you use the talent.
Can't compete. So I had to look at it another way. And boy, are you going to be shocked. Immortal, a build that's about raw power and is unyielding in the face of chaos, delivering calculated devastation while enduring what would break others. With a certain gear set and a certain skill, you become an immovable fortress, absorbing enemy fire with ease. Pair it with the Ravenous, and every carefully timed shot becomes a strategic explosion of damage and survival. Sure, other rifles may have the faster fire rate, but this build doesn't play by their rules. It dominates by outlasting, outthinking, and overwhelming the opposition. So I know you're eager to see this. Let's not waste any more time. We're starting right now. Okay, what's going on, y'all? I know it's been a while since I uploaded a build.
It's the dude doing a freaking YouTube video writing a Stephen King book. Jesus Christ. Right, the build. I'm willing to bet. He mentioned Foxes early on, so we got Foxes. We've definitely got Foundry. If he's smart, he went with Foundry Backpack. Or if he's... Ideally, you'd want to go with 2 pieces Weir. Backpack and chest, which he probably hasn't done because he said Foxes. I'm going to go Contractors, Foxes. Contractors because people just don't know. You don't want to use Contractors on... And you can. It's not the worst thing, but it's not really useful. Contractors Fox's 3-piece Foundry and Ninja Bike. That's my bet.
My schedule has been a little bit busy lately, but I've been playing a game, and I want to show you something that is crazy. I'm talking about you become invincible in legendary content. You might as well forget about heroic. You saw the gameplay. I put myself in the most vulnerable position to see if I can last, and I was actually a little bit nervous because I didn't think I would, but it surprised me with how easily I was able to tank everything and dish out the damage. So I'm going to show you the build, and there are different ways.
Interesting use of the D50. I'm pretty sure no one uses the D50 anymore. Yeah. Definitely got some protection from elites going on here, which is mostly not advisable anymore in Legendary, since, you know, they started putting other things in. But still, your prerogative. Right. Little bit of back history with the old Ravenous and how Ravenous actually works and why potentially these two pieces are not going to be helping you as much as you think. Like, I actually have more issue with these two than I do the 3 Foundry and the Ninja Bike. Right, for a start, a lot of people like the explosions that Ravenous gives. Those explosions are incredibly crit orientated. So actually going like Cheska Grupo here, even if you want to go blue core Cheska Grupo, I'd be fine with that. Those explosions are incredibly crit orientated. And by that, once you've built up stacks on the right side, you get 10 explosions when you swap. Those explosions will either crit or not crit. And it will then add up the total number of those explosions, or 10 of them that either crit or non-crit, and it will then give you 1 damage number. So those explosions can crit. It's incredibly crit orientated. It's an incredibly crit orientated weapon. Like, if any weapon says you must use crit on me, it's Ravenous. Those explosions are also not subject to damage to targets out of cover. Yes, the actual shots are. The explosions are not. So, depending on how you want to look at it, a good chunk of your damage isn't affected by detox. Having detox on your weapon is more than fine. Having another source of damage would be more beneficial. Obviously, the rifle damage is going to play a part here as well, which is why I would actually suggest 2 pieces of Weir here. Eagle's Grasp along with, I don't know, another Spear piece. That's going to give you 20% rifle damage, which is overall going to outperform Fox's, as well as like a bit more handling if you went Eagle's Grasp, and the increase in magazine size, which the magazine size on something like Ravenous is deceptive, because you go in and you're like, oh yeah, I've got 60 rounds, you pull the trigger once and it goes 58. Effectively, you still have 30 shots. It's a 30-shot rifle. So getting a little bit more magazine capacity out of it through use of something like Eagle's Grasp, 2-piece Weir, would be actually beneficial in this area. Why are contractors not going to be worthwhile here? Because effectively, whatever it is you think you can get out of contractors, Ravenous can do by itself just by swapping shoulder. Either from the right side to the left, do the explosion. That explosion will wipe out the armor. That's what it's there for. And then when it comes to the armor plating side, which is the left shoulder swapping to the right, this isn't, if you're hitting armor plating, damage to armor just isn't applying at all. Armor plating is health damage. If anything, you'd actually have a better time running Hollow Man, because that's kind of where Ravenous itself shines. A 500% amplifier for 5 seconds that will stack with itself, by the way, if you can get it within those 5 seconds. I think the most you're able to get is 3 stacks, which is 1,500% amplifier to armor plating. Armor plating is health damage and damage to targets out of cover, which we already have on the weapon. Yeah. Interesting setup. I'm happy that like there is a larger YouTuber actually covering Ravenous. I just hope they have their information correct. That being said, who am I kidding?
You can use this. I'm sure you've seen variations of Foundry Bulwark, and I've never used Foundry Bulwark with the Deflector shield, I've always wanted to make it a different way. I would implement improvised pieces so I can stack protection from elites, because with the deflector shield, NPCs, specifically elite, only aim at your head. So without protection from elites, it would be kind of useless, right? But with Foundry Bulwark, this is crazy. Look what it does, okay? It has something called makeshift repairs. Whenever you or your shield take damage, 25% of that amount is repaired to both over 10 seconds. This is increased to 35% if you're using a chest piece, which I am. It's called
Just arguing title here. Obviously, if you take 100 damage, you will heal 25% of it. This basically means that at no point can this build actively be immortal. You're just slowly dying. Very slowly, but you are slowly dying.
called improved materials. Now, the 2 and 3 pieces are crazy on this too. 10% total armor, 1% armor regen, and 50% shield health. So you become an immovable tank that really pretty much can't be stopped. Now, usually with tank builds, with the exception of a few of them, like with the Catharsis tank build with a big horn, you're not really dealing damage. You're just absorbing damage, being a tank. But I think that's kind of boring. So with this build, I'm able to dish out tons of damage. And I'm going to tell you about that in a second, because this half is pretty much for the tank and this half is for the damage that I'm dealing. You all know what the Contractor's Gloves do. It gives you LMG damage and weapon handling. But what I want it for is the 8% multiplicative damage to armor with critical hit damage on here. And then the Fox's Prayer knee pads with also rifle damage, but I want it for the 8% targets out of cover damage. Now, I know you see the Ravenous here as my primary, but I alternate between this and another weapon, which I'm going to show you in a second. But the way that I'm able to deal damage is with the Deflector shield. The beautiful thing about this is that you don't need to have skill tiers in order to yield the maximum damage bonus that this dishes out, because you get a tier based on either armor cores or skill tiers. So you get the full 60% deflector shield damage for having 1.9 mil armor. The specialization I'm using is
I don't know if it's changed in TU22, but the way in which you need to optimize, or how you used to have to optimize Deflector Shield, is skill damage. You have to have skill damage. Otherwise, you're just doing like base level damage. I don't know if it's changed, although weirdly, things like In Sync don't work with it. But yeah, in order to actually optimize the performance of your Deflector Shield, you will need a skill damage rolls. It's always been the thing. It's why no one really likes it, because it's a shield, but in order to optimize its use, you have to take and detract away from the build you're going for. So that's not against him. That's just me pointing it out. Because if he wanted to actively optimize into the Deflector Shield, all those rolls, all the crit rolls, everything else would have to be skill damage, which in the long run means that if he actually wanted to optimize shield use overall, he'd be better off going for the Bulwark Shield, because the Deflector Shield, it looks great, it looks shiny, and when someone can get some good footage of it and put it on YouTube, guarantee there's going to be a plethora of people now that are whacking out the Deflector Shield. They'll use it for 2 days, die on repeat, and go, why isn't this fucking working? You don't have skill damage in the build, that's why.
Again, okay. First of all, this deals more damage to drones, robotics, and skill proxies. And most importantly, it has something called the Artificer Hive. It's the exclusive hive for the Technician specialization. This autonomously heals your shield. And usually this has charges, a certain amount that eventually run out when you throw it on the ground. But if you have this on your back, the charges are infinite. It never goes away. So these work in tandem. Makeshift repairs and the Artificer Hive. This repairs your shield. This repairs your armor. And with the
Foundry also repairs your shield. If your shield takes damage, repairs your armor. If your armor takes damage, repairs your shield. Like, it depends on, like, X heals Y and Y heals X. It's quite simply, it's that simple.
armor regen is just crazy. You never go down. Now, the reason why I have the Ravenous is because I like to use this against elite.
If you never go down, then why don't we have full footage of you doing Tidal Manning? And I think you showed DUA as well at one point. Was that DUA? That's Tidal. Yeah. So if you didn't go down, where's the full footage? Asking for a friend.
Enemies when I don't have anybody else shooting at me, specifically chungas, because like I said, they aim straight at your head. So it's more beneficial unless you're on high ground to use this against chungas. Because what this does is that this specifically targets those armor plates that those chungas and those robotic dogs have, which is why it pierces their armor directly. You don't have to spend a lot of time shooting those enemies, because once you swap that shoulder, you're going to immediately see the damage affect their health right away. It's immediate, instant. This talent is called Gary and Frecky. When fired from the right shoulder, hits add offensive primers and defensive primers.
Sorry, the pronunciation of that really hurt me.
When fired from the left shoulder. Hits from one shoulder will detonate all of the opposite shoulder's primers when present. So when detonated, each offensive primer deals 100% weapon damage, which is 500% if you get 5, while each defensive primer grants 4% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage to armor plates. That's 50% amp damage, and those armor plates are referring to the ones from the chungas and the robotic dogs. So this is why it pierces their armor and just destroys them immediately. Now, aside from the elites...
Sorry, I just realised I was saying 500% earlier, and it's because the video's got like 500% weapon damage on it, and my brain just ran with it. Once you hit max stacks, it's 100%, like you said. However, if you're able to proc it at max stacks, it's doubled, so it's 200, which then means if you're able to get all 3 stacks within those 5 seconds, it's 600. So correcting myself there, as well as it's doubled. Primer effectiveness is doubled at 10 stacks.
And those armor plates are referring to the ones from the chungas and the robotic dogs. So this is why it pierces their armor and just destroys them immediately. Now, aside from the elite,
it's not quite piercing their armor, it's just going to do amplified damage towards their armor plate, not piercing it. Bit of a weird thing to pick up on, but I kind of feel like some people are going to go, oh, with this, I can shoot through their armor and go direct to their health. No, you still have to get rid of that armor plate. The armor plate is in the way. You will need to break it. You're just doing amplified damage towards that armor plate.
It's all of the purple and red enemies. They deal the most damage, some of the most damage in these legendary missions. Surprisingly, right? So you can't let them shoot you from behind. And the code for these enemies is that they just aim for the chest area. Elite enemies aim directly at your head. So use the Ravenous against elite enemies and use the Deflector shield against regular enemies. Now, like I said, there's another way you can use this. Here's another way where you have the Catharsis mask equipped, but you're not using the capacitor. Okay, any weapon will do, because what you want to use is the mosquito for your primary weapon. The mosquito was buffed also. Okay, this gives you 25% damage to armor, which was actually nerfed. In the PTS, it was 40% damage to armor. And I guess they said it was too much. Before, this weapon was obsolete. It was terrible. Nobody was using it, right? But now, when you hit an enemy, it applies stacks, and they're shared between players. And at 5 stacks, the enemy will forcefully target the last player to apply a stack for 5 seconds, which is what you want them to do. You want them to look at you and shoot you with a Deflector shield so you can just deflect the bullets back. And this gives you 25% more.
This is a good synergistic way of doing it. It just sounds incredibly slow. Like I have to get 5 shots on target before I'm actually able to do anything, when I could have just killed them. And I have to do that like one by one, when I could have just killed them.
Damage to armor. These stacks deplete over 5 seconds. Activating the effect on an enemy will remove all stacks from other enemies. But that's fine, you're always going to be shooting this thing anyway. So with the 8% damage to armor, you get 33%, which is crazy, and you can really see the effects of this. The skill damage you deal with the Deflector shield along with the weapon damage is crazy. And then you have Vicious Cycle. Like I said, you can use whatever style you want. I just prefer the other one. Vicious Cycle was buffed also because taking damage builds stacks up to 30. These stacks grant 1.5% weapon damage, and it used to be 1%. So instead of 30% weapon damage with Vicious Cycle, you're going to get 45. And this is just going to keep on receding, hence the name Vicious Cycle. With all the bullets that hit you at the same time, you see those heal clouds hit the ground and purge to give you 5% of your max armor. And because I have 1.8 mil, That's 90,000 armor that is going to give me over 10 seconds. And this is just going to keep repeating. But I haven't seen how much damage this deals in correlation with the other build style. I know that with this, you could definitely face tank chungas easily as well. You just have to take the mosquito off and use the ravenous. But if you don't have the ravenous, of course, the mosquito is easier to attain because the ravenous is only attainable in the foundry raid, right? But there's not much to this build. Okay, here's the one that I like. With the Ninja Bike backpack, you're able to get the 4-piece for the foundry bulwark. And it's okay because the backpack for foundry bulwark increases makeshift repair speed from 10 seconds to 5 seconds. And
that's so much stronger than the chest. Less heals but quicker, or more heals but slower. Less heals but quicker is going to be more beneficial, especially if you are taking a ton of damage like you will be in Legendary. This is stronger. Especially, like, predominantly, this will be stronger the more adds that you're face tanking. The chest is stronger the less adds that you're face tanking.
that's not really as important as the chest piece, which increases the actual repair to 35%. So you're good here. You have the survivability and you have the damage. There's nothing really to show you on the stats because it doesn't have much crit.
If you think of it this way, say like you take 100 damage, you repair 25% of that over 10 seconds. So you'll be doing 25 essentially divided by 10. Okay, we'll just do, let's get we get a calculator up because I can't be bothered braining right now. Calculator. Right, so what this will be 25 divided by 10, right? 2.5. So you will get 2.5 armor regen per second. That's not 2.5%, 2.5 points of armor per second, okay? With his chest, remember how to do this, you will do, it's 35 divided by 10. Shock or grasp, that's 3.5 divided by 10. What the backpack is going to do, you're still going to get 2.5, but it's divided by 5, right? That's 5 per second. It's stronger. Doesn't last as long, but in that initial heal, which is what you're going to need in Legendary, the backpack is stronger.
But man, does this build hit hard. And it's not going to show the armor damage on here with the mosquito because that only applies after you utilize it when gaining those stacks. You see, because it only has 8% from the contractor's gloves, but that's cool. You'll get that damage. So this was a quick build breakdown. It doesn't require much to use this. You have a lot of protection so you can be really comfortable when going through a legendary mission. And I thought that it'd be a good build to show to the community. Let me know what you think about it down below in the comment section. What variations of tank builds are you using? And give me some suggestions on what kind of...
That's enough. I'm upset he didn't go too far into Ravenous because I really wanted to moan about that. The things he did say about Ravenous were very basic, but they were correct. Is this build immortal? Not even close. Not even close. Easy way to tell when someone's like, oh yeah, immortal build, and then they show footage of them going through like legendary tidal. They'll then skip to like another area and then another area and then like, if anything, just speed your footage up and show the full thing. Just put it to like, I don't know, 300% time lapse, so it speeds the footage up. I personally would appreciate that a lot more. That way I'm able to see actively what the build is able to do, where you get. I can learn from your mistakes. Rather than you cherry picking the best footage to show what this build is capable of when you get lucky. I don't know what it is, but Identity seems to have this penchant for having amazing ideas and then displaying them in the worst way. How to fix build. Build tool. Right, we obviously want Ravenous. Okay. We're going to keep with what he's doing. So we're going to go Foundry. 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 For backpack, we are going to go Zwea. And then for chest, we're also going to go Zwea. Okay. You want crit damage, crit chance, crit damage, crit chance, crit damage, crit damage, crit damage, crit damage. What we rocking? Crit chance mods, apparently. Gives us the 45. A little bit low on the old crit chance, but with Ravenous. You can get away with it. Probably put one of these to crit chance as well. They are 51, nice and easy. For backpack talent, Adrenaline Rush. For chest talent, either Unbreakable, if you need it, or Intimidate. Intimidate, all of it, applies to all of Ravenous. Get in their face. Go for Blue Core if you want. Go for Blue Core. Get some nice shiny Blue Cores. Technician if you want. I would actually suggest Gunner for that 10% armor on kill, just to help you out. Ad Rush with all the Blue Cores. Utilizing the left shoulder to get the bonus armor from Ravenous. Both of these will proc Intimidate. Massive jump in damage. The Intimidate proc will apply to all of Ravenous. From there, basically just main the left shoulder. You will have issues with larger groups, but then every build is going to have issues with larger groups. Take a shield with you. You're going to be at a 6-core shield. It's not going to be perfect, but overall, in terms of your killability and survivability, it'll basically be the same. You're still getting the regen from Foundry. You're going to have a ton more damage to actually deal with the ads quicker. And you're getting your 2-piece WEA for magazine size and rifle damage, which is going to outperform the Contractors Foxes combo. Overall, initially, against like ad for ad, you're going to be like 4% less, roughly. But overall, considering certain parts of Ravenous don't take effect from damage to armor, don't take effect from damage to targets out of cover, don't take effect from this, don't take effect from that. Across the board, will just be more damage, admittedly not by much. Along with using Ravenous, Ad Rush, and Intimidate is actually a really, really nice combo. If you wanted to still go down the Deflector shield path, it's up to you. I don't recommend, just simply because in order to actually, like I said, optimize Deflector shield, you need to spec into skill damage. I don't know why it works this way. The devs just did weird. And then certain parts of skill damage, like I said earlier, from like In Sync, just don't apply. Why? I have no idea. Weird game is weird. But yeah, this is probably a more effective setup. You get 51% crit chance, 127% critical hit damage. Yeah, this will probably work a bit better. Have fun. Good luck. Don't die. It's bad for the health.